On behalf of everyone at the Great River Race team, welcome to the GRR Coxswain Safety Briefing. Firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Matt Preston and I'll be one of the scrutineers checking your boats on Saturday morning. I've been rowing in the Great River Race since 2005 as a member of Bench Blisters Rowing Club. I'm qualified as a Level 2 fixed seat rowing coach, and last year I joined the Great River Race board. So, why are we doing this video briefing? As fixed seat rowing enthusiasts, we want to encourage new crews to join, as well as assist our fun entries using the Great River Race for the first time to raise funds for charity. Now we know that this will mean some crews and coxes are less experienced. Even expert crews visiting from other countries or regions may be less familiar with conditions on the Upper Thames. This year, with around about 350 boats in the race, we want all of you to enjoy the challenge of the Great River Race in safety. It's a unique and quirky London river event with an excellent safety record, and we wanted to keep it that way for years to come. Okay, let's talk weather. The reason the English like to talk about the weather so much is because it changes here so often. Meteorologists will tell you that the weather fronts coming in from the Atlantic Ocean, which is to our west, are the main driver of weather change in the UK. They'll talk about warm or cold fronts and how each type of front brings a well understood pattern of weather. We don't really need to know any more at this stage, apart from understanding that here in London, westerly winds tend to prevail. If you look at the picture on your screen, you'll see this is a representation of the River Thames, and our race will be running from the right of the screen to the left. Also notice that north is facing the top of the screen. So, what does this mean to me as a cox? Well, it means you can expect a headwind, which will change as you follow the river's turns north and south. Shifts in wind direction will push against the hull of your boat and can make it change course. You need to watch for this when you come close to bridges or other boats in particular. And if you find yourself pushing through choppy water, wind effect can be magnified as the boat rises on the crest of a wave. Next, let's talk about water. The Great River Race takes advantage of the flood tide and is timed so that crews reach Richmond at a high tide, which is about an hour after the high tide at London Bridge. The speed of the tide is usually between 1 to 3 knots, about 2 to 5 kilometers an hour. Now, a good endurance crew should be able to cruise at about 3 knots, say 5 kilometers an hour. Now, this means that with the tide, you'll be traveling at around about 10 kilometers an hour or 6 miles an hour. And if you do that or maintain that speed, you should finish the race in about 3.5 hours. The fastest crews will be maintaining speeds of 8 miles per hour or around 13-14 kilometers an hour. Low tide at London Bridge on Saturday the 14th of September is expected for around 9:20 in the morning. This is British summertime. The high tide will be reaching Richmond at around 15:15 in the afternoon. And the first boat away in the Great River Race is timed for 11:20. Against us, of course, will be the flow of the mighty River Thames. Now, at this time of the year, river flows measured at Teddington Weir, which is above the end of the race, will be around 10 cubic meters per second. But of course, this can vary depending on rainfall in the Thames catchment area. A cubic meter of water weighs 1 metric ton, which is about the equivalent of 10 Fiat 500s flowing against you. So, what does all this talk about tides and flow mean to me as a cox? Well, travelling at 10 to 14 kilometers an hour may not sound much, but it does mean that you'll be speeding along at about 3.5 meters a second. In other words, about a boat length every 2 seconds. This won't give you as much time to react, and get the boat to turn around as you might think. Therefore, it's vital to keep a good lookout and stay away from other boats and hazards at all times. Next, let's talk a little bit about tactics. To get the best from the incoming tide, try to get your crew warmed up before the race and then row as firmly as you can for the initial part of the course. The idea is to get as close to Richmond as you can on the flood tide. Once it goes slack, those last few miles are hard work. Apart from the wind and other variables like river depth and width, we know the current tends to be faster on the outside of every bend. However, the distance is shortest on the inside of every bend. This is a choice you're going to have to make at each bend in the river, and really is one of the fun parts of being a cox. Next, let's talk safety. As cox, you are responsible for the safety of the boat and your crew. You can always use your passenger to help you with the bridge map and keeping a sharp lookout. In the larger boats, you can stand if you wish to see better, but do this if you feel confident enough and it is safe to do so. On race day, please pay particular attention to the start layout and start guide. You can download these from our website, and copies are also distributed during registration. You must be aware of your designated emergency rendezvous point, or ERV, in the event the race has to be aborted at the start. Please remember that the cox and passenger should wear buoyancy aids at all times during the race. Buoyancy aids must also be worn throughout the race by dragon boat crews, and we strongly recommend that anyone under the age of 18 also wear a buoyancy aid. It's compulsory for anyone under 16 to wear a buoyancy aid. Let's now review the rules of the road, which is published on our website. Firstly, the crew of every boat must maintain a good lookout at all times, taking care to ensure that progress of vessels coming up astern is watched as well as those ahead. The cox must remember to keep looking behind, especially through the bridges, to assess the threat of being overtaken. All boats should keep as close to the right of the river as possible, but must keep to the left of all the islands, piers and fixed moorings lying off the north bank. It's essential that slow boats keep well inshore to allow room for others to overtake. Overtaking boats must ensure that they keep well clear of the boats that they are overtaking. They should not attempt to pass between two boats or inshore unless there is at least 2 meters between their oars or blades and those of the boats that they're overtaking. Any boat overtaking needs to take full account of conditions ahead that might force the boats ahead to alter course or slow down. And boats being overtaken must ensure that they act with consideration towards those who are overtaking them, and not to take any action that would make overtaking more difficult or dangerous. You must not overtake while passing under a bridge. If more than one craft is heading for the bridge arch, the overtaking craft, in other words the craft coming up from behind, must give way, slow down or stop. The race itself will be patrolled and controlled by volunteer safety boats provided by Northern Exposure Rescue. These boats will be flying a flag with the word safety in white on a black background. Let's look now at what to do as a cox if something goes wrong. It's important to remember that we all make mistakes. Good humour and consideration to all are vital. In the event of a collision, all of the boats involved must stop immediately and exchange details with each other. The cox of each boat notes down the race numbers of the boats involved, the location, and the time that the incident occurred. Now these details should be passed to the race organisers if requested. None of the boats can resume racing until the other boats involved have confirmed that they've noted the details. Next, let's think about what to do as cox if your boat or crew gets into difficulties. Firstly, if your boat is swamped or capsized, you must stay with it and await rescue. Don't try to swim to shore. Now, if you get into difficulties below Lambeth Bridge, you'll need to be recovered by a safety boat, and they'll take you to the nearest safe landing point. This will count as a retirement, and you'll not be allowed to continue in the race. Your boat may be towed to the finish line by the safety vessel. If your boat or crew gets into difficulties above Lambeth Bridge, you'll be assisted with recovery by a safety boat. You may then be allowed to continue in the race if the boat is deemed to be in a safe condition to do so. Remember though, that at any point on the course, a safety boat may instruct you to discontinue if they feel it would not be safe. Their decision is final. If your craft is immobilized for any reason, and you need urgent assistance, cross and uncross your arms above your head, and if possible, wave a piece of white clothing or your laminated race number card. In the event of a serious incident, a large plain red flag will be raised at the scene by a safety boat. On seeing this, all competing boats must stop racing, not overtake, and adopt a single file through the area. Racing may continue when the red flag has been passed and no other is in sight. Well, we've come to the end of the Cox's safety briefing for 2019. Thanks for your attention so far. Let's summarize. The golden rules for staying safe during the Great River are quite simple. Firstly, you must prepare your boat. It can get very rough on the water, particularly the lower third, so please minimize personal belongings, fit bailers, and use spray dodgers to keep the waves out. Be prepared for scrutineers to check the equipment on your boat and ask questions about this video. You must follow the instructions of the umpires and safety team at all times. Please remember also that they are volunteers. You must stay close to the Middlesex, the northern or the starboard bank at all times. You must not overtake while going under bridges. You must use your bridge chart to make sure that you're going under the correct bridge arches. And we strongly recommend crews wear or carry a life jacket or buoyancy aid. Remember that dragon boat crews and those who are under 16 must wear them at all times when afloat. And also the coxswain passenger must always wear a buoyancy aid. And finally, remember to follow the navigation rules. So now, as a cox of your boat, you should have what it takes to row London's River Marathon. Thanks again for your attention, and have a great race.